Here we go for round 1. We are on the draw. Our opponent is keeping his 7 and we have 6 lands and the Gateway Shade, which does mean that we have mana to pump the Shade, but I'm not going to keep 6 lands in our deck, where the mana curve basically stops at 4 and then we have 1 Shadow Slides. That's a pretty easy mulligan. And I think that hand is probably even weaker. 5 mana and Shadow Slice. There's cards I could imagine drawing that would lead to a very nice curve, but if we don't draw any of them, then we're just not looking at winning this game. I think we have to go down to 5. And let's keep this hand. Kind of unfortunate to just draw one spell in all of our starting hands. Let's hope that we can draw out of this and that our extort cards manage to take over. I'm going to try to Executioner swing the Fire Fist Striker immediately, because it's going to provide troublesome otherwise. Wow. Okay, at least that didn't work out. Now, we don't really have a good matchup against the turn 3 Domri Raid, and it doesn't help that we mulligan to 5. So, we might actually just see Domri Raid ultimate here, and then we are definitely out of it. But yeah, even 1000 Lashes isn't really great, because Domri Raid can just make the creature that we enchant fight one of our creatures, which is already a problem. If we draw Kingpin's Pet, for example, and our opponent has a 3 toughness creature like Scapclan Charger, it's just going to kill it. So I'm not even going to play the 1000 Lashes. I don't want him to know that we have it yet. With our current hand, we are definitely not winning, so yeah, it looks like we are playing against a somewhat average Gruul. Like, these cards aren't amazing, but yeah, we just can't beat it with our draw, basically. Not going to show him any more cards, just see if he reveals anything interesting from that Domri Raid. If I had played the Kingpin's Pet, he would have just killed it with Scapclan Charger and Domri Raid, and then dropped another creature, so yeah, let's just concede this and see if we can mount a better offense next game. So let's see, how do we want to win this game? That's actually pretty interesting, because the games where our opponent is on Domri Raid are going to be very different from the games where he isn't. So we're also playing against red, so Shielded Passage might be a nice card to have. Aerial Maneuver can also be okay. I shied away from the white spells a little bit, because we do have less plains than swamps. Now, Razor Tip Whip is interesting because it's a nice way to keep Domri Raid down in our control deck. So if our creatures aren't really able to push through, then we still have the whips to handle the Planeswalker. It also looks like our opponent is playing quite a lot of expensive cards, so it's not really clear if the late game favors us or not. So let's see what kind of options we have here. It's really a difficult position to be in, given that we are one game down and we are facing a very powerful deck, from what it looks like at least. I think I would like to take things a little more aggressively, and that involves taking out some of the removal spells and putting in the razor tip whips, maybe also getting rid of Prophetic Prism because it's not crucial for our main game plan. If we take out Death's Approach and Executioner's Swing, then we have space for the razor tip whips. Now, Prophetic Prism isn't going to be amazing, and Gateway Shade is somewhat of a bad card as well. We've seen him play all these high power, low toughness creatures, and that's not what you want when you have Gateway Shade. So I think we can get rid of that pretty easily. Now, both whips are nice additions, and then it's probably the Shadow Alley Denizen. It's not good against the fight ability of Dominate, but it's good if you want to damage him and otherwise can't. Yeah, that looks reasonable. Slate Speed Ruffian is an option as well, maybe instead of Armor Transport, because we do now want as many black creatures as possible. Yeah, I could see like boarding in one of the white spells, but I already have the Razor Tip Whips, and I don't want to go too low on the creature count. That's a much nicer hand than the last one. We have a Great Curve and perfect mana. One of the most important things about Planeswalkers is that you really need a somewhat of a board position once they come down, and last game after a mulligan to 5 we had nothing even after Domri came down, so the advantage was just too much to deal with. I like how this game is looking so far, though. Opponent doesn't even play a spell. I'm going to extort off of Undercity Informer and then hit for another 3 with 1000 Lashes potentially just coming down next turn to increase the clock by a fair amount, giving us not only the upkeep damage but also the ability to hit with Undercity Informer once. We're still pretty weak to Domri Raid, but I don't see how holding back 1000 Lashes changes that at all. So I'd rather just deal the most damage here, and if he has Domri Raid, then at least we should be able to kill it with whatever creature we still have after that. And the reason that the fact that the Charger has 4 toughness means it's going to survive any fight, and that's actually quite good because our 1000 Lashes is going to stay in play. We have a Disciple of the Old Ways coming down. That's currently not even good enough to fight with any of our creatures. Our opponent does have 3 mana. It could be Errors of Justice. Could be a combo trick to pump up the Disciple. We don't really know. With Orzhov, you almost always want to play your spells pre-combat to make sure that you have extorted whenever possible. So here we are going to see if there is an Arrows of Justice or anything else coming our way. Arrows would be kind of unfortunate because Death Card Rogue is quite important to our overall game plan. But we can still put Shadow Slice on Basilica's creature if our opponent doesn't play a Croconaur or something like that. Yeah, it looks like our opponent has a pit fight to kill the Death Cult Rogue, and I don't see a reason not to sacrifice it to Undercity Informer. Don't have anything to do anyway, so let's see what we mill here. Yeah, nothing too interesting. It looks like our opponent is taking 3 here. Now, if this creature survives, we are just going to win with our Shadow Slice, but also the Extort in conjunction with 1000 Lashes would just mean that basically any spell is lethal at this point. And let's hope that 3 life is low enough that we can get there. We also have the Razor Tip Whips, so quite a lot of outs to get there at this point. And there's Domri again, making things interesting. Another fight, but yeah, we are just going to Shadow Slice. Shadow Slice our opponent out. He doesn't know it yet, but I hope that the Informer gives us some more information here. And as he's on 3 now, would be actually interesting to know whether he had the Domri Raid from the start, because, well, I suppose he just drew it because he could have played it last turn, but it's actually possible that he just had to hold it back because our evasive creatures were too much. Going to do one more attack here, see how he reacts. Maybe he shows us one more trick. No, just a chump block. So let's... It's probably kind of greedy to check out more of his deck, but don't think that he's gaining any life here, so we can just do that. And we see a Wildwood Rebirth. So we actually have to be kind of, well, a little bit careful. If we mill him, we are potentially giving him more cards to Wildwood Rebirth. Okay, so as I said, pretty average. There's a Disciple, there's a Slaughterhorn, there's a Pit Fight, but Domri Raid being the most scary card, and our 1000 Lashes not as amazing as we would like because of his multiple fight effects. Aerial Maneuver can be kind of nice against cards like Pit Fight, so can Shielded Passage, but they are somewhat difficult to apply a lot of the time. And I don't want to start off with a hand with a lot of these effects and then not have anything else. Not sure if including Slate Street Ruffian was the right call, or if Armor Transport would actually be the card that we want. Could go with Armor Transport on the draw. They are both bad against 2/4 creatures, but the Transport has some more utility against Disciple of the Old Ways, and it still trades with most of the cards that our opponent has shown us. And otherwise, I think we have a very good setup here. Just the cheapest possible, the most aggressive way of going about things, with the Smite being one backup card, and that's mainly because we don't have all that much that's really good against Domri Raid. Maybe even Shielded Passage would be an option, but Smite is just so much better in all the games where he doesn't have Domri Raid, because we can just blow out any kind of Blood Rush shenanigans. Our opponent is on the play. We have 5 lands already, quite a lot, but I like this hand with Death Cult Rogue and then hopefully at some point backing Apparition. Not going to mulligan. And basically what we need now is only spells. We have all of our lands already. All the lands we need, that is. And that's turn 3 Domri Raid. Okay, let's see. If we drop the Syndic, then our opponent potentially kills it with Domri Raid's effect, which gives us the opening to drop back an apparition at end of turn to threaten it. Otherwise we play the Death Cult Rogue, and then Domri is most certainly going to kill it. So looks like Syndic is what we want here. But I'm not too happy about this. The fact that there's another turn 3 Domri Raid with our opponent being on the play is a problem. Okay, it looks like he didn't have a creature to dominate the Syndic by now, or right now. Maybe not even a creature at all. This is some good news. Even though we can't play a backing apparition here, gives me some hope that maybe even the Death Cult Rogue could survive the next turn. Especially given what kind of creatures he has shown so far. He has shown Scourge Walker and Adaptive Snapjaw, and both are pretty bad at fighting with Death Cult Rogue. So the real question is whether to keep up backing apparition or to extort with Syndic of Tides. If we extort, then and Domri Raid kills one of our creatures, then we lose the 1 damage of backing apparition, and I think that 1 damage could provide absolutely crucial when trying to beat Domri Raid at this point. So I think that we want to keep up backing apparition. And I'm going to tap down to only a white to represent Smite. Of course we can't attack here because of the first strike on the Disciple. Yeah, backing apparition not great because Domri still has ways to fight, but pretty sure that I just have to go for it now. Who knows what he's sitting on, but don't think that I can wait too long. Could drop in Undercity Informer first, but if we get the backing apparition to reduce Domri Raid by quite a few counters, that's also fine use. Yeah, he has more than enough ways to use Pit Fight, it looks like. He's only on a single creature, but we can't punish him because it's sitting there with first strike, and yeah, he does get rid of our next creature as well. So now it looks like it's time for Balustrade Spy to take over. And I am going to mill him. He does have a Wildwood Rebirth in his deck, maybe even in his hand, but I think that we still have to try to do that. Now we did know that there wasn't a creature on top of his deck as well, so not a big deal here. Slaughterhorn could kill Balustrade Spy in a fight, but that's still an even trade. Although Domri Raid is going to be a problem, of course. There's the Razor Tip Whip that we wanted to draw. So now it's getting interesting. I think it's very clear that we need to attack Domirate here. And we still have a big problem if our opponent ever finds a large creature to work with. What we might want to do here is drop Undercity Informer, because it still hits through the Disciple if our opponent decides to get rid of Balustrade Spy with Slaughterhorn. Now, we do have 6 lands, and that means we have to decide how we want to play our spells. Extorting is nice because we drain our opponent a little bit, but what we could alternatively do is just go for the Razor Tip Whip plan to keep Domirate under control. And I think that's more important than extorting. But I still want Undercity Informer in play, so I'm actually going to miss 2 extort triggers by playing it that way. Don't know if that's great, but I feel like we have to get as many ways as possible into play to actually damage Domirate. And extort sadly doesn't hit Planeswalkers, so this is what we are working with, and we have to hope that at least this draw wasn't a large creature. Okay, it looks like our opponent is going for the +1 ability again. So, once again, no creature on top of his deck. That's pretty good for us. I assume that he doesn't have a large creature in hand now, because otherwise he probably would have played it. Okay, he drew a Legion Loyalist. Yeah, that's probably not what he wanted. And makes me think if I misplayed there with the Balustrade Spy, because I knew that he didn't have a creature on top of his deck, so I probably could have played that better. Now, Undercity Informer trades with Slaughterhorn, but our opponent has to block the Informer to protect Domirate. And I would get rid of his way to deal with Balustrade Spy, at least for the moment. So I think that's worth it. He also has a double block with Disciple of the Old Ways and Legion Loyalist, but don't think that he's going to take that. Just because of the risk of me having anything. It looks like our opponent is taking the trade here. Let's hope he doesn't have the Wildwood Rebirth. And yeah, we can hold back a land, I feel like. Opponent, no. Probably didn't draw a creature again. He did use Domirate last turn and missed, and he misses again, so I don't know what he's drawing. Most likely it's just lands, but there's not a lot of spells that you could draw but couldn't play here. Maybe more pit fights, potentially, but that's about what I can think of. With Domirate in play, he's also in need of Disciple of the Old Ways as a defensive card, or he was until now. So yeah, this is quite an interesting game, given that we are facing off against a turn 3 Domirate and still in the game. Our opponent could have drawn a burst of strength, which would be quite the blowout, but I think then we probably wouldn't have seen him +1 Domi rate, but rather make his disciple a 3/3 and use it. So not going to play afraid of that, but rather make sure that Domi rate goes down. I think that's the most important thing here, and anything else is really not a big concern, especially now that we've drawn Kingpin's Pet. Okay, that's great news. We did manage to get rid of that, and we know that this isn't a creature either, so our opponent is now facing down quite a board on our side. We have the Razor Tip Whip to help us win the race if this ever turns into more of a race. It's also very interesting that our opponent is choosing to attack with the Disciple, even though it holds back Syndic of Tithes, and it doesn't look like our opponent is winning the race from the board at least, so kind of confused about that. But it could be that he thinks that's his best course of action. Yeah, that was that was quite a funny game here. Our opponent certainly got a bit unlucky with the Domi rate not hitting ever, basically, and we managed to somehow threaten first the Planeswalker and then his life total, drawing our 3 extra creatures there more or less in a row. Definitely helped as well. Yeah, quite the close match there. Mulligan to 5, losing to Domi Raid, winning game 2, and then facing Domi Raid again on turn 3 in the final game, and somehow miraculously pulling it out. Good. Time to give you another round.